Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being here. This, I think the sun is coming out. Remember the sun, that we've had it every now and then. Anyway, I'm Bill Hurry. I'm a member of the Presidential Search Committee. We hope you're here for a hearing about the search for a new president of Rhode Island College. I have along with me two other members of the search committee. Dennis Souza, computer manager here at the college, who you may know. And also we have Dr. Vince Bollinger from the Department of English, faculty member in English. The committee consists of 10 people. I'm standing in for our chairperson, Bill Folks, who is also the chair of the Council on Post-Secondary Education, which is the body which is legally responsible for and charged with the selection of president of the college. So unfortunately he couldn't be here today, and he asked me if I would moderate this session for him. We are taping all of the sessions, videotaping the sessions, so if you would like to speak, ask a question, make a comment, make a suggestion, whatever, we welcome you to do that. That's why we're here. We'd like to hear what you are thinking and feeling about the college and about what a new president should look like. Denise Males from the Office of Advancement and Support has a mic there, and she'll bring it to you. If you raise your hand at the appropriate time, she'll bring it along to you. Also with us today is Clark Green, who's the interim vice president for advancement of the college, and he and Denise are providing staff for the search process of the college. Now, I'm sure I've forgotten something. We have on the table over there, Clark, you want to?
Yeah. Just so you know, we have copies of the job description, if anyone would like. I'll walk around with them in a second, just raise your hand. But also, if you'd rather not make a comment or attribution or be on film, or if we have an email address that we send out to everybody, but if you'd rather make a comment anonymously, there are forms here that you can fill out and just flip them over, and we'll collect those and make sure the committee can do those as well. So on your way out or any time, just grab one of these forms, fill it out, and leave it here. Or I'll go ahead and walk around with copies of the job description if anyone would like to see that once we get started.
Can we just clarify? Sorry.
Sure.
The reason why it's being taped is just so that the other search committee members who can't be here can review it, so that your comments are just so that everyone on the search committee will actually see your comments, hear them.
Reference is made to an email address where you can send comments if you like. And the email address is ricpressearch@ric.edu. RICPRESSEARCH@ric.edu. So with that, our purpose is to hear from you. Let me just tell you that we are very early in the search process, and the committee has set a very aggressive agenda. The chairman would like to have this process wrapped up and a new president identified by the end of the academic year, actually, and so that we would have a new president in place for the fall. We don't know, how all of this is going to work out, but these hearings, we've had hearings with faculty, staff, alumni, and donors, persons related to the foundation, the college foundation, and this is the second hearing we've had for students. So with that, this is your time, and we're anxious to hear what you would like us to hear.
So I'm with the Anchor newspaper, and I would like to see a president who engages with the media organization, the student media organizations on the campus. So far, I feel like I've only been there for one semester, but I feel like the relationship we have with the president is not very healthy right now, and I'd like to see a president who comes up and engages with us. We don't have to hound her for quotes or knock on her office door at all hours of the day trying to talk to her. Like someone who we can speak to openly. Yeah, and as a political science student, I really tried to get people to show up to this, and the overwhelming words I received was that the committee wouldn't actually listen to what we had to say. So I don't know if you want to answer that or talk about that at all. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. I think your point is well taken. I mean, I'm surprised to hear that you find it difficult to access the president for purposes of campus student press. And I think we would all hope that that situation would be otherwise. Now, having said that, I can tell you I'm old, and I wouldn't be here spending this sunny afternoon listening if I didn't care what you had to say. Number one. I speak only for myself. I was a member of the staff at Rhode Island College for over a quarter century. And since leaving Rhode Island College to go to the Higher Education Assistance Society, I have been involved with the foundation or otherwise involved with the college in all of those intervening years. So I kind of love this place. And I think it's a wonderful institution, and it serves the state and the students well. And so I care. That's why I'm part of the committee, and I'm anxious to hear what others think. And I give my colleagues on the committee a chance to respond as well.
You know, I feel the same way. I graduated from here in 1997. I was fortunate enough to land a full-time position here at the college in the fall of '98, and this is my second home. You know, at the staff session, we spoke. Many of the staff spoke about this issue and how much we actually care about this place. This isn't just a job for us. This is a career. Many of us would like to spend the rest of our careers here. So having been a student and now on the other side of the table and having the distinct honor and pleasure of serving on this committee, we take it very seriously. I'll also add that we've been told that politics will not play a critical role in this, though this is the state of Rhode Island. Politics is everywhere, but we take this very seriously, and we take your input very seriously. So everything that you say will be brought back to the committee as a whole, again through the video, but also through the notes that we take. So I appreciate your comments.
Yeah, I would just want to just emphasize that we most definitely care what students have to say. I mean, students are the reason why we're here. It's the whole point of the college. And I have to just, speaking personally, I'm one of the few people on the search committee actually who was not a graduate of Rhode Island College. So everyone else, or most of the other people on the search committee have been students. And so I think the student experience is critical. And I think your voice is really important. I would just ask you to, I think it's great that you're on Anchor, make your voice heard on Anchor, but then tell your associates to make their voices heard. Sometimes it's difficult to do that, but I think the effort is worth doing. So definitely, please make your voice heard.
Also, there's a student member of the search committee who has the same voting and discussion rights as every other member. So there was a RIC student.
He's a poli-sci major too, so if you feel good about that.
Good afternoon, David Postman. I assume when you interview the various candidates, there will be a discussion of philosophies of education. I don't know what those are. I'm an older student here. I have a concern. I'll try not to make this a speech. I agree that cooperative learning is very important. And I certainly see the purpose of that as people move out into the work world. I'm currently working on a project that involves probably 10 to 12 people, so I understand that. But I just feel like that there is this move towards the modern library becoming like a Borders bookstore. And I find myself, when I go to take a final exam, I'm by myself. When I'm preparing for group study, I'm by myself. And I find myself kind of searching around the campus for a quiet place where I can sit down and study. And I don't feel like the modern educational philosophy as it applies to libraries is an appropriate direction to go. And I think that it should remain a serious quiet place where a person can, have intense focus on very difficult subjects. It's not a horrendous situation. Maybe I'm just older than the average student and used to, librarians appearing out of nowhere to, smack you on the head if you're talking too loud. But I feel like it's a trend. In fact, I've been told the modern library is moving this way. And it feels like they're clearing out space there for these groups, and it's costing us some of our really good books. So that's a concern of mine. And when you speak to your candidates and you discuss their philosophies of education, I hope you'll keep the older students in mind as well as the younger students. Again, I see the point of cooperative study. It's just sometimes it's a little too much over there. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope you will see, if you haven't already looked at the job description, that there's a great deal of emphasis in the job description about the nature of the college and the diversity of the student body, age as well as other aspects. And so there's a strong emphasis on that. And while I can't tell you specifically what questions, because I don't know what questions will be asked, but I'm sure what we're looking for is someone who has a philosophy of education and demonstrated ability to succeed in an environment such as we have here at Rhode Island College, which would include older students, of course. Thank you.
My name is Brendan Cody. I am here on behalf of a small but important group of students at Rhode Island College. I was really pleased to see that in the profile there was a mention towards promoting diversity on campus. As when you look at the student profile of Rhode Island College students and even staff and faculty, there are a lot of different diverse groups of students. I think it's really important that these students are represented and discussed. The college does do a lot now to promote diversity and inclusivity on campus. However, there are still points of growth that could be made. For example, I'm specifically representing a group of students that currently live in the residential halls in the gender inclusive housing community. This is a community where students and individuals are able to live with other individuals not distinct based on gender. I think that this program is really important. However, currently this program is very small and only houses about 6 suites holding half of a floor within Penfield Hall. This group of students is a strong belief in that there should be a minimum of a whole residential hall on campus that is gender inclusive, if not more. We kind of find it hard to believe that this doesn't already exist. So we really hope that the selection committee keeps this in mind, because the next president of the college should obviously be a driving force behind promoting diversity and inclusivity, whether it be through this program of gender inclusive housing, or whether it be relating to students with disabilities, mental health awareness, students that may be older, or students that may be younger. Students at Rhode Island College all fall into their own diverse category in some form, even if it isn't a typical form of diversity. We're all diverse in our own way, and we really hope that the selection committee and the next president of Rhode Island College will also be as passionate about diversity and inclusivity as we are.
Thank you.
Also, thank you guys for taking the time to hear our opinions.
I'm just curious as to, you know that the area that you have now is small, the number is small. Is that by policy, by demand? I'm just curious. What do you think?
We think that it's a combination of demand and the fact that there may not be as many students that are either aware that this exists or that are interested in this. But if you look at other institutions, it is a very common practice to have a whole residential hall that is completely inclusive, where they do not force students who may not conform to a specific gender to live in their political, biological sex gender, and obviously that can cause some discomfort within that individual. So we feel that there should be a larger group, but we do kind of think that it is just based off of the people that have shown interest into it now.
So not arbitrarily restricted by the administration?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes,
comment on that is that the gender inclusive housing is only available in New Hall, which is the most expensive dorm. So it makes it harder for some people to be able to live in that housing because it's more difficult to afford. But it's possible for it to be in different halls. It's just for right now, it's not. But it could be in a suite style, like in Thorpe or Weber. But to have it all in New Hall where it's more difficult to, or it's more expensive and difficult for someone to be able to live there, it makes it harder for someone like me who's deciding between the gender inclusive housing or living off campus next semester. I'd rather live on campus, but I couldn't afford the extra couple thousand that it would cost to live in New Hall.
Also, to actually point out from that,
why
because
don't you wait for the mic so we get you on? Get the whole comment on tape.
also just to build off of that as well, because of its setup in Penfield Hall right now, it is not accessible to freshmen at all. So we think that that's also something that should potentially be assessed and changed.
Thank you for bringing this to our attention. Faculty have been concerned about gender-neutral bathrooms being more widespread across campus, but this is not an issue that I was fully aware of. A student of mine participated, I think, in the trial for this, for gender-inclusive housing, but it didn't occur to me that there's only one suite, so thanks. I would recommend you bring these kinds of questions up when we have sessions with the candidates, so that you can get direct responses from people who want to be president and to see how they respond. Yeah. Thanks.
If I were a presidential candidate, I would want to ask about the governance structure within the residence halls and how decisions like this get made. I would assume that there's some sort of a governing council or whatever, and you've probably taken these to such a group. But anyway, as a president, I'd want to be sure that I had in place a structure that would take a concern such as the one you're raising and deal with it in some effective way. Not everyone is going to agree with every aspect of every decision that's made, but one would hope to have a structure that had issues such as this, ideas, suggestions, whatever, concerns, frustration, whatever they might be, addressed in some constructive way. So you might want to think about that. Let me just say, the intent is that we will have, we don't know exactly how many, but probably more than 2 and less than 6 candidates who will come to the campus for interviews, and there will be time scheduled for various constituencies, such as yourselves, during that process as well, as I understand it. So keep that in mind. And that's one of the reasons that we're on this aggressive schedule, to try to get to that point and have them on campus before you all do whatever you do post-May. Next. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm a graduate student here on campus, and in my position at the Preparatory Enrollment Program, I work as an academic advisor for first-generation college students. And historically, Rhode Island College has had a high percentage of first-generation college students, and I'm very concerned with the passage of the performance-based funding that these numbers could be drastically affected, since a lot of first-generation students tend to take longer than the 4 years necessary to meet that performance-based initiative. So I would be really, really interested to have a candidate who's very dedicated to supporting the first-generation community, so that Rhode Island College can continue to be known as the College of Opportunity.
Okay. As a first generation, I know it's hard for you to imagine this, as a first generation college student myself, I couldn't agree with you more. I was a higher education administrator, as I mentioned earlier. And I was Dean of Admission and Financial Aid here for a long time. And I once thought we would run out of first generation college students. And, shows you what I knew, right? We have plenty of first-generation college students. And RIC has played a special role in working with students who are first in their families to go to college. So I hope that flavor comes through in the job description and the description that's included in there about the nature of this college, both historically, in the present, and how we see it certainly for the foreseeable future. So thank you for your comment. Let me just ask you about academic advisement, since you mentioned that. I think we heard in one of the other sessions, might have been a student comment, but concern about academic advisement. And I know there's a concern, and we've heard it addressed in other sessions, about the difficulty that some students have in getting through in 4 years, or getting the courses they need at the appropriate time, so as to avoid unnecessary extension of the time frame to get the degree. Do you want to say anything about that?
I can speak for my program. We're a selective program for freshman students who have applied and been accepted.
Why don't you take the microphone?
Sure.
Right behind.
So I can speak for my program when I say that we're a selective program. We have about 600 to 700 applications every year, and we accept about, I think this year is our largest group with 125. Last year I had 32, so it was a big jump. And one of the problems I think that face students here is the fact that they do faculty advising, and so they're required once per semester to meet with their faculty advisor, who in all actuality is probably overwhelmed at this point in the semester with requests for meetings to lift the hold. And so because I was an undergraduate here, I can't really speak to how the faculty members handle those situations and how they handle their meetings. I'm sure there are many conscientious professors. What I can say that in my position is I work with my students in the program, and that we prepare them for those faculty meetings so that they have a schedule prepared. We look at the requirements for the courses, we look at the gen eds that are needed, and then the courses that they've already taken. The problem that seems to be is because we have such a high rate of first generation and low income students at the school is that many of them have to work in addition to go to school. So handling a full-time course load, which is technically 12 credits, is challenging enough. But in order to make it through in 4 years, students actually need to take 16 credits. And many of them still have to work at the same time and are really striving to kind of have that work, school, and life balance, and it's extremely challenging. And so I think that the problem is the amount of course credits that students need to take in order to get through the degree in 4 years. Because of the high rate of students that work on this campus, non-traditional, incoming freshmen, it doesn't really matter. Many, if not most, of our students work. And so they're not really able to kind of take 16 credits on a regular basis that pushes them into that 4-year period. When it comes to classes that are offered all the time, we actually have been working with our students in our program that we've showed them the online catalog, which has the degree requirements for every degree, and it actually lists every semester that the course is open. So let's say a student is a nursing student and they need biology 231, it tells you when it's listed. So it'll say offered fall, spring, summer. And so students need to kind of take that impetus on themselves, which isn't always the case because obviously a lot of students don't really know what they need to know in advance. So it's not that I think that they're not able to do it. I think that there's just maybe not quite enough academic support. If I had 3 more organizations within this college, I still don't know that we would have enough professional advising to help all undergraduate students. I know a lot of larger institutions have both a faculty advising for within the major and then have also professional advising staff. I know that URI is actually shifting towards that at this point. And so I know that obviously funding will always remain an issue because we're a smaller institution, but it might be beneficial to consider, if not just for the first year, able to institute a professional academic advising for all students to kind of help them maintain their path towards degree attainment.
Okay. Next. Sir.
Another comment on, as mentioned, the getting gender neutral bathrooms, is that I would like the president to realize that there's a lot of places on campus that could be made into gender-neutral bathrooms. For example, in Craiglee, the single-sex bathrooms, like there's a women's, a men's, a women's on each floor. There's only one sex. Those could easily be made into gender-neutral bathrooms, even though they're multi-stalled. But it's something that is very simple to be done, but it hasn't been done. So, I mean, it's just difficult for the average student. They have to walk up or down a flight of stairs just to go to the bathroom. And in the middle of class, having to hunt down a bathroom, it'd be easier if all of the bathrooms that are like that are gender neutral. And I believe, like in the Donovan Dining Center, there are unisex bathrooms, and in the library there are bathrooms like that. It's just putting more of them would help to have some of them in all of the buildings.
Thank you. Denise, right behind you.
Hi, my name is Nate Banks, and I work at OASIS, the Office of Academic Support and Information Systems. So, the biggest problem that I think, and I mentioned this at the first presidential meeting that we had that took students' voices into consideration, was sort of the lack of direction. And I did come in late, so I don't know if this has been covered already or not, but from someone who works at OASIS and someone who works with a lot of the needs of students who need to get advised versus students who are transfer students who maybe, there's only one transfer joint admissions agreement supervisor at OASIS. And so I guess my point is there is a lot happening in the OASIS office, making it seem like that the office doesn't really have like a direction or a purpose. It's more of like a catch-all, which I don't think that the staff, like the professional staff or the faculty staff or student workers really know how to like cope or handle with. And so I brought this up at the first meeting, and so I'll bring it up again. It's just to sort of understand that each of the offices on campus that are like outside the academic, like not like the English department or the political science department, but the like OASIS, to have student services, correct. Having more of a specific direction or purpose to, I'm talking about OASIS specifically, having more purpose on what services they should be giving to students, and then whose responsibility it is to pick up the other needs of students that OASIS can't pick up. That was coherent.
I think I'm right. I worked with Gary Penfield for a long time, and he recently retired as Vice President of Student Affairs. I think there may be an interim in, but if I'm not mistaken, the next president will have an opportunity to be filling that role with a new vice president. There'd be a process, I would assume, but the point is, a lot of these are issues that would come within the bailiwick of Vice President for Student Affairs, I would think, probably in conjunction with the Vice President for Academic Affairs. But there may, in the immediate future, be an opportunity for you to express these things in the context of a search for someone who will be coming in and looking at student services from the vice presidential perspective as well. So, just a thought.
I think something that needs to be worked on is our food services.
I'm sorry, can you speak a little more loudly, please?
But we need better food services. For example, we only have Donovan Dining Hall and the cafe. There aren't very many options. It's kind of like the same food from both places. For example, some schools have maybe like Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts, or they have outside sources come in to bring in different varieties of food instead of just having a dining hall to choose from. And it kind of, for people who not only live here, but people who are here often enough to eat on campus, it gets very repetitive and almost, you just don't want to eat there anymore because it's the same stuff and it's just boring.
Other comments? Up here in the front.
Hello. President Cariolo has been very accepting of Greek life, and I would like our next president to also embrace Greek life. And we do, you know, I believe that Greek life is an important aspect on this campus, and I'm sure you can agree with me. And that's it.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm a sophomore in the Health and Phys Ed program, and one thing I wanted to say is I don't think a lot of people realize that President Cariolo was a huge advocate for the big epidemic going on right now as far as people are dying. The heroin overdose is huge. And this past November, as part of the Promising Practices, Dr. Alexander was here. I don't know if anyone was here, but it was amazing. And President Cariolo stood behind her. As a student in recovery, she stands behind me. And my goal is to eventually get a recovery group on campus, but also because I lost someone to the heroin epidemic, and it's real, and I really, really am devastated that she's leaving, because in my opinion, she has some really big shoes to fill, and I really just want to convey my message that this new president, I really hope that they take this into consideration and do something for the fact that there are drugs that happen on campus, and what about the students like myself in recovery who don't want to be ashamed of where they've been. So I hope that happens.
Thank you.
I would like to see the new president to make more of a presence in small events, because President Cariolo does go to some of the big events. You see her in Donovan a few times a year. You see her on the big event on the quad. But if you go to a local event like a 703 that Sojourn has in here, or a small group on campus that has an event, most people, the majority of people on campus wouldn't be able to pick the president out of the crowd, which I think is upsetting as a school to be able to say, oh, who's our president? Oh, I have no idea. So I'd like the next president to have a more powerful impact on the student body by showing her support for smaller groups on campus.
Thank you. Another comment, question, suggestion.
I think it might be helpful to us if you could describe the kind of picture that we're painting of the presidential candidate that we're asking for, so that we can help narrow down what our complaints are, what our suggestions are to you.
What do you guys want to think of?
Well, there is a search profile that outlines what we're hoping for from the president. And
Yeah, but
that's not what he's asking. He's asking us to assimilate and regurgitate what we've heard. In other words, what sense do we get out of the comments? Have I got this right?
Yes.
Today's comments?
Yeah, and all student comments in general.
Want to take a shot at that?
Sure. Now, student input is very important, and I think, to sum up, sort of, we're looking for a president who not only can think with the big picture and play in the political realm that is Rhode Island, get funding, but also keep in mind the real reason we're here, and that's you. So, you know, I don't know how else to say it, but it's important that the new president is student-focused, both in life, in academics, residents. I mean, we've heard comments about food service, gender-neutral bathrooms. It's all important. That president needs to be well-rounded and well-versed, visible. I think it's. I hope I've hit everything, but it's very important that the new president is student-focused. That's, you know, as Vince said, sort of at the beginning. That's why we're all here. You know, without you, we're not here. Just, you know, this is Rhode Island College is extremely important to the local economy, Rhode Island itself, the region, if you will. So, you know, your points are valid, and we definitely take them seriously. We'll take them back to the committee. I think it's very important that you're here. We're very pleased with the turnout today. I know that the first session was sort of mistimed, and didn't give students the ability to attend. So that's why we tried really hard to schedule a second session so that we could hear these very comments. We appreciate it.
I'll take a shot. I didn't mean to dump it on you. But I'm just one of them, you know. I just happen to be moderating today. I would say, and let me just preface my comment by saying it's very useful to me. It's important to me because, quite frankly, you sit on a committee like this, you're looking to find an outstanding leader and CEO of a major organization, right? Complicated, complex organization. In this case, an educational organization. So we want somebody who has good, strong, demonstrated success in academic administration and higher education administration. And there are a whole lot of other things. But what is a nuance that comes to me out of this conversation so far today, and what I'm hearing you say, is that you'd like to have a president who is more specifically aware of the issues currently pressing on students at Rhode Island College right now and here and now. So, I mean, there's one thing to say you have a CEO. So, yeah, I want a CEO who will find and bring to the college an extraordinary Vice President for Student Affairs, who will put into place that structure that as a CEO I would want to have to administer and govern student affairs in some reasonable fashion, so that I would expect the kinds of issues that have come up today would get addressed, okay? Not to say that everything can be handled in the same way with the same priority, you know, in every case, but that there would be a normal course for these kinds of things to be considered and resolved in some fashion. But what I'm hearing you say, and you can revise this for me, is perhaps you want somebody who's really more closer to the students, I guess closer to students, more present than some of you feel, more accessible than perhaps you feel the current administration has been, in, you know, whether always or in recent times or whatever, somebody who's more present and more personally engaged with the kinds of issues that you are raising here today. Is that?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. You want to take a shot?
Well, I would just, I mean, these kinds of listening sessions have been really useful to me. I mean, I as a faculty member, I feel like I have some awareness of what's going on campus, or what's going on in your lives. But I've learned quite a lot, and I'm taking notes, and I've learned quite a lot from different constituents about things that I didn't know. And I would say, I would just emphasize something I said before, which is make sure that you yourselves are visible when we're bringing in candidates. So you ask these specific questions to the candidates themselves. I mean, we keep these in mind, and I think there's not a thing that I've heard that I don't agree is important. But I think it's really key to make yourself visible immediately, right? So any person who's coming here already knows the constituencies that have to be addressed, right? And so definitely just make yourself known, make yourself present, and ask these same kinds of questions or bring up these same kinds of issues when you have the candidates coming here to campus.
And let me turn it back on you. Have you read the job description?
I have not.
You should. I mean, for those who have, I'd be interested, you know, I'd like to know whether you think we've captured some of this stuff. Now, you know, we have not listed gender-neutral bathrooms. We haven't listed some of these specific things that were raised today. But I hope we've captured the nature of the kind of person that we want to lead the institution as one who is student-oriented and visible and etc. I mean, I would hope that those qualities, personal qualities, are, I hope as you read the job description you would say, if they get a person who fits this job description, that we could reasonably expect that the kinds of things you're raising today will be addressed in some fashion. some reasonable fashion. Yes, sir. No.
I've spoken quite frequently and I haven't introduced myself. My name is Sammy, and there are a couple of issues, and other issues is that trying to change, in records there's currently no official way to change a preferred name. Not necessarily saying to change your legal name on campus, but to change how you want to be addressed on campus, how you want forms to be addressed to you, and to change your name on campus for people who, at least in my circumstances, are gender variant and are not, and do not want to associate with their birth name and want to have a different name to be given to the, have a different name be used with them while they're on campus, on forms that are mailed to them, on forms that they have to sign on campus, for the most part that aren't legal until they have the ability to change their name legally. Even to have services on campus to help that process, to legal name changes. A lot of those processes legally for LGBT people are difficult to do and take a lot longer than they really should, just to change your name or to change gender markers on your ID. I think the school should help with that, and I think the new president should be involved with that and trying to push towards developing actual programs or forms that allow preferred name change or a preferred gender marker and other such thing. Also, I think that this meeting, the way that this is done, is a very good idea to continue in the future, and I think that the future president should in some way reach out to students in the same fashion. I think that the
like
future
a town
president...
hall meeting, that sort of thing. Like a town hall?
Yeah.
Kind of environment.
Whether it's like this, more formal, or even if they go to events, as other people have said, and converse with students and see what they want and how they feel about the event and how they feel about this or that, but to actually be at the event and converse with students and talk to students and let the students know them, and other than a couple of students who know them, rather than as many people as possible to know the new president, be able to talk to the new president, and let the school be one for the students and not some mystical school run by someone we don't know.
I think it's, I don't mean to interrupt you, finished. I think that from the hearings I've participated in, there clearly seems to be an issue about communication on campus. So any candidate who's coming in who misses that doesn't deserve to be present, because I mean it is pervasive, I think. And in some of the hearings, even less here today, but in some of the hearings, I would say that concern in this regard, this again, me talking, is really palpable. You know, I mean, people are very emotional about it. Their communication, so on, either absence of it or the manner in which it's been conducted is clearly an issue. So, I think for the search committee not to be aware of that, you'd have to be comatose, I think, on the one hand. On the other hand, I would say again, I hope that as you read the job description, anybody who doesn't have one, we have copies over here. But as you read it, I would hope that that comes through too. That one of the things we are, one, I suppose, concerned about, but two, intent on having a leader who will address effectively is the whole business of communications and collaborations on campus, interactions on campus.
I have one more comment. I am a Francophone Studies major. I'm a political science and francophone studies double major. I have a major, I'm the only one in my major, but it's not an invented major. It's something that actually exists, but there's only 3 majors in the French department, or the modern language French section. It's not its own department. So all the modern languages are so small that they're all under one department. All of the Italian, Spanish, French, all of them, German, is that there aren't enough classes that are available for majors to even minors to be able to take those classes that they need. It takes a lot longer because, and also classes have to run with 1 or 2 or 3 students at times just to be able to get some classes to run. But if the requirement for 10 students in a class are required for that class to run, most classes in the modern language department would not run. So I do like that the administration has been beneficial in that way. Has been supportive in that way to support the languages. And I just hope that the president in the future also supports the modern language department and allows and pushes for it to be a much larger department than it is now. I think that the modern language requirement is really beneficial to help the languages, but it's still not enough to keep people coming in and being majors and declaring as that language. Is that I know at URI they have a program to double major in a business and in a language, and I think a program like that to more cohesively combine language and business, or language and nursing, or language and anything, because you can put a language with every single major and it would make that person significantly more marketable and significantly more successful, having that language and making the student body more accepting of diversity, because we can accept the different languages. And there's a lot of different languages that are spoken on campus. I've met a lot of people that I wasn't exposed to when I was in high school, and I think supporting that more is a great thing for the future president to do.
Thank you. As an erstwhile French major for a year and a half in my undergraduate program, my heart is with you. I think it's important to say we have on this committee, what, 2 or 3? We have 3 members of the Council on Post-Secondary Education, is that right? Including the student member, and including the chairperson of the Council on Post-Secondary Education, to whom the president of the college ultimately will report. That is to say, the Council on Post-Secondary Education. And being realistic, there might be tension between the policies of the governing board and your particular interest and or the president's interest when it comes to the cost of making certain programs available in the face of not high demand among students. So in my heart, I'd say I hope we get somebody who's interested in language and is supportive of the arts and sciences in particular, and I think that should come through too. I think it does come through in the job description, and but realistically, we have to look at it and say this person, even if he or she has an interest in that, might run afoul of certain policies to try to make the best optimal use of the resources that are available at any given time. So anyway, I think we just need to, I appreciate your concern, pass it along. I personally support it, but we have to be realistic in the end. Let me just, for those of you who may have come in after we began, two things. If anyone has a comment that you'd like to make, pass it along to the search committee, and you don't want to make it in this public forum, we have some forms up here so that you can write your comment anonymously and leave it with us. And also, the committee has set up an email address to which you can send any comments that you might have. Keep them clean, please. Anyway, the email address is RIC, R-I-C, P-R-E-S-S-E-A-R-C-H at ric.edu. R-I-C-P-R-E-S-S-E-A-R-C-H at ric.edu. Next comment.
Dave Postman again.
Yes.
This is a little bit of a speech. I'll try to keep it short.
A speech?
I could not agree more with what this young woman said about the performance-based funding. This is the least expensive four-year college in Rhode Island, unless I'm mistaken. I think it's a little unfair to squeeze RIC, given those circumstances. I work at Donovan, and I'm always interested in the younger students. I talk to them. What high school did you go to? I hear a lot about Central Falls, Central High School, Hope High School, as well as Barrington and other places. And they wouldn't be over there sweating in that dish room if they were coming onto campus in a Mercedes-Benz. So there's a lot of first-generation college students here, and I think that performance-based funding is not really fair to this school, given the steps that it takes to keep its tuition low. I know probably the professors don't get paid what they get paid at other colleges, and I think the performance-based funding is just not fair. When I was at CCRI, one of my main advocates was Dr. Walter Crocker, who was the president, or the dean rather, at the Providence campus. And he graduated from
one time a dean here,
Is that right?
Yeah, I remember him in the 70s, sure.
And he graduated, I believe, when the college was still down where the mall is now. It's just, the fact that this college has been here since 1854, means something to me. I don't know if it's been finalized yet, but we will be having a speaker come here in the fall, giving a speech here, a talk here, and also at Harvard. And I think it's a good thing that we can share our speakers with a little school up in Boston. This is a very fine institution. I'm very proud to be here. And, I just like to see a president who can go down to the State House and be a strong advocate and get money for us. I've never had problems with the access to the president here. Long before I came here to speak at a recovery group, and President Nazarian, for some reason, just sort of like scooped me up at Roberts Hall and walked me over to where the meeting was, because I didn't know where it was. And I've also met President Cariolo. So, I don't know what circumstances are about this change. I haven't been here long enough, but hopefully we'll get a good, strong advocate who can do a lot of the things that people are talking about, but also go down to the State House and get some money and be a good, strong advocate for us, because this is a good school and people should be proud to be here. And I walk around campus, I pick up trash because I'm at RIC, and I'm proud to be at this school. And so let's try to keep it going. Thank you.
Here, here.
Good evening. Thank you for being here. I'd just like to hear your opinions on whether or not you're going to be a dry campus, because I feel as though it is a huge safety issue here on campus, because I feel as though a lot more students are going off campus to drink and not having a way to get back. And potentially driving home and putting somebody in the community in huge danger, as well as themselves. So, thank you.
I don't know that I would voice an opinion in terms of that policy. I mean, I can tell you personally, I like my Jack Daniels. So, if that counts for anything. But, quite frankly, that issue was one that didn't even come to my mind until you just raised it. I mean, I was here at a time when we did have limited, I think we had beer, we used to have a Rathskeller in this building back in the dark ages. And so I've seen it both ways, and I'm sure it can be argued both ways. So is it that you'd like the committee to put on its list of criteria to have a president who was pro-alcohol versus anti-alcohol?
More pro.
More pro. You'd like somebody more pro.
But I argue either way. I see both issues.
Yeah.
Are there options available now for safe rides home or things like that? If people go off campus, like is there some kind of vehicle program where if you operate that?
Yeah, there's things like Uber or things like
Is
that.
there something college sponsored?
College sponsored. I haven't looked into it. I've seen at Bryant University they had something called Zipcar, which is they pretty much deliver students to bars, and as long as they're of age, I feel as though that would be very beneficial as well.
I have a little bit of input on that. I remember a time when the college did offer rides to and from clubs, and at that time, the president, I believe it was Dr. Nazarian, put a stop to that because he believed that it sent the wrong message, that we were encouraging student drinking, and being a dry campus, getting rid of the Rathskeller. I just don't think it was the message that he wanted to send, but I do remember that the college did, and I think it was a program run out of this building. I think it was the student activities program that sponsored that at one point, and unfortunately they put an end to it. So, and I say unfortunately because it's a reality. You know, college students want to, you know, you spend a lot of time with your studies, and then you want to have that time. But it's one of those issues that will make any administrator really squirm in their seat. So I'd love to see you present that to an incoming candidate and watch them sweat a little bit on the brow. It would be quite interesting.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. We'll get you.
So, I just remember.
Are you gonna put in the anchor that I?
No.
Jack Daniels?
You've been very nice. I don't. So yesterday, my Italian teacher is an adjunct here, and so yesterday I had to make up an exam with her. So I went to the modern languages department with another student, and we asked where she was, and they had not heard of her. And then we asked where her office was, and they sent us to a classroom that had a class in it, where she was not present because it was a classroom. And I just feel like the adjuncts here are not respected, or exactly, they're not treated fairly, I don't think. And I would like to see a president who would maybe try to treat them fairly, or maybe get them into full-time teaching positions here rather than focusing and leaning on the adjuncts so much. That's all, thank you.
How many of you have classes with adjunct professors? You have 3. I honestly, I've been not, involved in the administration here directly for a number of years, almost 20 since I left now. But I was surprised at some of the data that was shared with the committee. I was surprised at the number of adjuncts, actually. The ratio between full-time faculty and adjuncts is quite different from what it was back when. So, but and I would hasten to add, my guess is that if we look at other colleges of the same type and size, probably it's a trend that's happening across higher education, I believe. So I don't think RIC is unique in this regard, but it's clearly an issue. It's clearly an issue.
It certainly is a growing trend within higher education, and it comes right down to money. You know, the adjuncts are less expensive than your full-time faculty, less expensive to employ. I can say that the adjuncts here at Rhode Island College recently organized. So they are a recognized union on campus to fight for their rights. So that it is happening, and they're not going anywhere, unfortunately. I mean, well, I shouldn't say unfortunately. It's a great group. They are needed and should be respected and treated a little bit better. And I think you'll see that happen.
Just one small comment.
Who's got the mic?
Sorry. Another thing involved with the modern languages department is that there, for my French class this semester, the first 2 or 3 weeks of the year, I was in, I think it was the first 4 or 5 classes, okay, so 3 or 4, I was in different classrooms each. I had 4 different classrooms for my French class. We finally got put into one class that was consistent, but at one point, I think I was in a closet. I'm pretty sure it was someone's, like, it's decent enough, but it had a little table and some paintings, but that was it. It was like smaller than a bedroom. And that was my classroom. And another day we were in an office, and then the next we were in a conference room, and now we're in an actual classroom in a library. But it took 2 weeks just to get into an actual classroom. So the modern languages have to fight for resources monetarily, but they also have to fight for classrooms just to be able to teach their students. My class only has 3 students, but it doesn't mean we should be in a closet.
I did come in late, so I'm not sure if this was brought up already, but I would like to see a president who advocates and fights for better living conditions for the resident students. I've lived on campus this is my 3rd year living on campus, and currently I live in Weber, and the conditions of the dorms is deplorable. They're barely livable. Well, specifically mine. I don't think it's had any major renovations since it was built. I mean,
You're in Weber?
yes. It's a handicap accessible. If there's a handicap door, I live in a handicap suite, but the building itself isn't handicap accessible. The number of repairs that have had to be made in my dorm just in the year I've lived here it outweighs the cost of paying to live in a dorm. I mean, I lived in the dorm last semester, and the heat didn't work until the week before we left for winter break. They came in to fix it and said they didn't know how to fix it and left it. So I would like to see a president who advocates, fights, tries to improve the living condition of the residents, because although we're a small percentage of the student body, we are a vocal and important part of the student body, and I think sometimes the resident students not necessarily get left out of the equation, but are kind of, in certain aspects, a second thought of like, oh, they're resident students, it's okay, we can put it off. And I just want to see someone who puts more of an emphasis on the buildings and the living conditions that we pay $10,000 a year to live in.
Just to do a lot of echoing of what he said, I live in Thorpe, so right in front of Weber. And again, I like how the living conditions are rough, and to have a whole bunch of little repairs happen and not one big repair happen doesn't make sense. I don't know anything about costs or anything. I'm never focused, but to have no big renovation and just a whole bunch of little fixes doesn't seem to make sense. And then so I would like the president to be open to hearing something like this, to have students who do live on campus, who have lived on campus for a while, or like me who have lived on campus for less than a year, to be open to listening to sort of these complaints and not having us fill out a form and submitting the form. And to have that different approach, to have that personal approach and listening to what we have to say versus sending an email. I think it's really, really important, especially for resident students who, I will echo, sort of have a second thought, who are a second thought in terms of repairs and things like parking and things like that. So that's the end of my comment.
Well, resident students, I'm sure, are a small percentage of the total student body. They're probably, at this day and age, are probably a larger percentage of the student body of Rhode Island College than ever in its history. Maybe the math doesn't exactly work, but technically speaking, really, I mean, think about it. And as I hear some of the things you're raising with us, if I were the new president coming in, and I was sitting and reading all this, I'd say, oh my goodness, what's going on here? But one of the good things that happens when you have a change of presidencies, it provides an opportunity for somebody to come in with a fresh perspective. And normally associated with that is the president will want to have a review of all of this stuff. We'll want to gather this sort of information and put it, after distilling it and analyzing it and putting it in perspective, include it in some sort of a strategic plan to deal with the issues that are out there. So I mean, I think as a member of the committee, I was excited before this conversation about bringing in an extraordinary leader to take the college to the next step. And but I mean, I think one of the positive things that happens when you have a change of leadership is you have this opportunity for a fresh view on things. And so anyway, I'm optimistic about that.
I am too. Right. I am also optimistic about somebody who is approachable, someone who is personal, someone who is like open to the idea of going and like participating in a review with students, resident students, commuter students, transfer students, first generation students, things like that. So a review, but not with just a president and some officials, but like with students, people who work here, things like that. So an all-inclusive review that doesn't leave anything out, I think would be the most. I would be very impressed.
You've heard, at least from these three members of the committee, we would say, especially students.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
And so I would be very impressed if that was one of the first actions that the new president takes.
I hear you. Thank you.
So I want to say, as a student who relies heavily on like loans and grants, I know President Cariolo was really big on obtaining donors and doing stuff with the RIC Foundation, and she really did make it a point to make sure that students like myself could come here. So I just want to make sure that that's something that still goes on, and also that it's visible as far as scholarship and grants, because I know I've had to personally search like crazy. Even the financial aid office, if they give you information, a lot of time it's kind of irrelevant. So I just want to make that kind of a point. And the last thing I want to say, I know a lot of people have said communication's an issue, but I know for me, the title president has intimidated me. So one day I did actually email President Cariolo's office, and she personally responded. So I don't know if any of you have ever done that, but don't be afraid to, especially now. I'm sure she'd love to hear from you. But she does, and I hope that the new president would be the same.
Thank you.
My biggest concern here, as a resident student here, is I used to live in Weber too. I lived in an all-girls suite, and we took showers through both semesters in darkness, complete darkness. We had no light in the shower. We only had a light above the sink. One of our toilets didn't flush, so it was 10 girls using one toilet. We put in a work order. They brought us a light, and they told us to install it ourselves. So yeah, didn't know how to do that, so that didn't work. My other biggest concern is the Africana Studies Department. On campus, we only have one full-time faculty member for the Africana Studies Department. So it's difficult for, as an Africana Studies major and a Justice Studies major, to take classes where there's only one teacher who actually teach Africana studies, and we have our head department, but he also has to teach sociology. I feel like when it comes to Africana studies department, it gets shut off, it gets put to the side due to what it teaches. It teaches radical blackness, it teaches anti-white supremacy, and that usually gets shut down when it comes to class ideas or class projects and things that might cause controversy, but it's the truth telling. So, and we tried to have a trip to go to Harlem that was an educational trip to learn about history, and our school basically told us, go with programming on the New York trip where they're going to sightsee and do it that way. Well, they basically said your educational program is irrelevant, go see it through sightseeing. If you want to go on the trip and go through Harlem yourself. Which I took that personally as shutting down this is our first trip in 3 years, or anything that we've actually tried to bring besides a speaker, outside speaker. So that hit to the core, and I just feel like we're struggling as Africana Studies majors to be respected. Other majors are looking down at us as we're taking the easy route. Some teachers are asking, oh, are you learning about Africa? Or you're studying about Africa, but they need to learn that it's Black studies. It's not African studies, it's not Africa studies, it's Africana. So I feel like hopefully the next president understands what majors his colleges are offering and what goes under those majors and what they're being taught and what's the message getting across.
So if I were to ask you to describe in one word the most important quality that we should be looking for in the next president of the college, what would you say? What do you want to do? One word.
Are we just shouting out?
Say again?
Are we just shouting out?
Sure.
Because I would say personal.
Personal.
Open.
Open.
Optimistic.
Optimistic.
Conscious.
What was that?
Conscious. Conscious.
Conscious or conscientious?
Conscious of what's going on.
Maybe both.
Especially with students in college.
I was actually going to speak to this a little bit. This is my 4th year at Rhode Island College, and I've lived on campus for 4 years as well. I've been very active. I've worked in 3 separate departments on campus: the Residence Life Department, the Department of Advancement, as well as the Career Development Center. And so I've been very active on campus, also through student organizations and whatnot. And something I've noticed through administration is a lot of things happen behind closed doors that are not openly discussed. So I would say something that's really important that the committee should consider is having a transparent president coming up. I think that would be really important so that all of the students and the whole entire Rhode Island College community are able to see the decisions that are being made, where our money's being spent. This might already be happening, and it isn't just super accessible to students in the community. If it is happening, I think it should be pushed to make it more accessible so that it is literally in our face, so that no one can have the ability to complain that they don't know what's going on at the college, because that is a common complaint from students, and I think that is a ridiculous complaint from students because there's no excuse for you to not know what's happening. But I think if those resources were more readily available and that transparency was more present, it would definitely promote the college community.
I'd like to just sort of compound on that. So I had maybe 1 or 2 money questions the last time that this committee met. And I haven't seen a budget, I have no idea where to find a budget, I have no idea where to get the specific comparison of RIC, URI, CCRI comparisons. It was actually through Mr. Clark who found it for me, found the specific link for me, emailed me the link for me. And then of course once you get it, you don't really understand it unless you're like a finance major. So while I'm not specifically looking for like specific dollars and cents maybe, but to understand like we're going to build this instead of this, and it's going to cost X amount of dollars, who's it going to benefit, who gave the most to it, which sort of talks on the tailcoats of the transparency comment as well, of being to understand we're about to make this really big decision, and I'm talking as the potential new administration, like we're about to make this really big decision, what do students think? Versus we've just made this new decision, what do students think? And I think approaching it from a, what do you think we're about to do, versus a, what do you think about what we've just done, is a very is something that isn't happening now. And I know that you say that she's very like she'll respond to you very well, but I haven't tried to email her, nor is she very like, hi, please email me. You know what I mean? So being transparent and understanding that not all finance majors, and so understanding a budget and how a budget works, while it is important, we're going to need some help. So all of those things, all of that to say, this new president should be extremely personal, like we said, conscientious of what was happening, but also willing to explain some of the decisions that he or she and the administration have made. That would be my comment.
Thank you. Thank you. No.
Hi, my name's Mary. I'm actually a former student. I work here now, but I figured I would jump in. I was here during the transition between President Nazarian and President Cariolo. And the one thing that I really noticed about President Nazarian was he was always around on campus. He would reach out to students, say, hey, how are you? How are your classes going? And he would almost like seek out problems, like, is there anything that's we can help or fix? Try to correct. I remember like numerous nights I would be sitting out on the steps of WXIN and he would just be wandering around campus, out on the quad during free period. And with President Cariolo, I never really saw her when I was a student. And now as someone that works here, I really don't see her with the exception of a few times at Donovan or at some events on campus. But I definitely don't see her at student events. I think one thing I would like to see as an alumni is for Rhode Island College to go back to being an educational institution and not a corporation. I feel like when I started here as a student, it was all about higher education, and I'm just kind of addressing what everybody's kind of saying at this point. It's gone from being an educational institution where you go here, you get a degree, you're focusing, you're really energized about what you're learning. And I was kind of like, okay, I gotta take this class. And like, it really needs to go back to the original purpose of why we go to RIC. So it would be great to find a president that remembers students are here to get an education. They're not here to pay a tuition bill to pay all of the other expenses. Because at the end of the day, they're who we're focused on.
Thank you. There's a plot to this. The next one's going to be over here. And that's. Thank you.
I think just going off what she just said, I think the next president should be aware of the graduation rate, because I think here it's like surprisingly low. I think the last time I checked it was like 40%, which is kind of sad. Once you come here, you kind of expect like a 4-year degree, or you apply to a school expecting to graduate in 4 years. And I think that going to like student services and everything like that should be a priority, so that students have that option where they just don't come here and then after they're stuck here, so that we produce more alumni and everything so that they can promote RIC too, so we get more students coming in at the end of the day. So I think the graduation rate should definitely be a priority for the next president.
You say 40 is 4-year or 6-year?
For the 4-year. But this is not like a definite number, I think that's the last time I read. That was what percent.
Not that sacrifice of funding.
Well, I think, again, I'm not on the Council for Post-Secondary Education, but I think I'd be surprised, let me put it that way, if the issue about graduation rate, whether 6-year or 4-year, is not a concern for the Council on Post-Secondary Education. As a taxpayer, I would say, I have a concern about that. But as we can see, even in this short conversation today, there are different ways to look at these issues. You can look at it from the taxpayer's point of view and saying, you know, if we don't get these students through, you know, we're paying more to get them through, and the students paying more to get through. So that's one way. But we heard, I think, on this side of the table that and this business about performance-based funding, it's driven in part by this sort of concern, right? Because somebody out there is saying, look, we're putting money out there, but we're not getting the production that we should be getting. There's an inefficiency in the system that needs to be addressed in some way. On the other hand, you know, we don't want to lose sight of the fact that we have a student body, as has been described here, that works, you know, typically works and it has to work to get funds to survive and that sort of thing. And that even if the system were perfectly efficient in terms of providing the courses at the right times and all that kind of stuff, maybe there are other things in the system or in the context in which the school is functioning that we can't lose sight of and throw the baby out with the bathwater, as it were. You know, we have to sort of keep. These aren't. I suppose if these were easy problems, they wouldn't be problems because somebody a lot smarter than I am would have solved them, right? But your point is well taken. Point is well taken on both ends of this conversation, as I've heard it in this brief conversation. And what was it?
I will say that the committee in our first meeting, we had a Skype meeting with a very well-respected higher education consultant, and this was the very first point that he mentioned. He talked about that the workforce, about 68 to 70% of the workforce is required to have a bachelor's degree, and currently we're at about 45 to 50%. And he talked about our 6-year graduation rate being stuck at 42 to 44%, and how that it's about 10% lower than the national average. So he really pointed out those two things as critical for our next leader to focus on and improve upon. And then he went into strategies and working with CCRI and developing a relationship between the academia there and how it transfers and translates to here. But I noted that. I thought it was very profound. Another thing he said was that we're experiencing about a 5% decline in high school graduation rates annually. So there are less of you out there, and it's sort of this double-edged sword because it just creates this pinch where there aren't enough people to bring in the revenue that we need to run the institution. So what's happening is there's this balance between your tuition rates and the amount that the state can pitch in, and it's becoming lopsided. So it's definitely a challenge for the next president, and that's why the focus is on not only somebody who can lead the institution and worry about today's problems, but to figure out how we get to where we need to be in the future and be that proponent, that advocate to fight at the state level for resources that, some people say they're there. It's difficult to attain them. It's difficult to grab them and bring them here to Rhode Island College.
Sir.
I think that the discussion about performance-based funding, it's in one of my classes, methodologies of political science, we did the math about how performance-based funding could not work appropriately, and how in order to get the graduation rate to be better, to be higher, to graduate more people on time, more funding, concentrated programs, and making sure that people are able to see their advisors and are able to get the classes that they need and able to do the things they have to do to graduate, to make it easier for people to graduate on time, to make the bureaucracy of education less affecting how long it takes. There's there's a reputation about RIC. You know, it's not a four-year school. I mean, the students make jokes about it all the time. They say, oh, you'll be out in 4 years. Probably not, it's RIC. I'll be out in six or 8. And it usually is true. I've met people who are 5 years seniors or 6 year seniors, or someone who are here on their 8th year. And as a double major, and one of the programs I'm in, the French program is so small, I probably will be here for 5 or 6 years. It's not even like graduating in 4 years is, if I am able to take more than 16 credits a semester and I'm lucky enough to get all the classes in, most likely I'll be a 5 or 6 year senior. But to make it so that people can take the classes they need to and not have to worry about where the money comes from.
Thank you.
I just want to also mention health services is great here. Lynn does an awesome job, and also if you're a part-time student, you can go basically get to team for free. And I'm just afraid that that's going to end at some point. So hopefully the new president can also recognize that it's an amazing, amazing resource. So I'm grateful for that.
Thanks for that. Positive.
Thank
Anyone
you.
else have something great you want to mention?
Appreciate it.
I just wanted to point out that the issue of the graduation rate and not being able to take the classes isn't limited to small majors that are like the Frank studies. I'm an education major. I'd like to think that that's a big major on campus. And if you look at the program design, it's not designed for 4 years. It's designed for a 5-year program. But all the programs are advertised in the education program as being 4 years. But if you sit down and actually look at the math, it comes out to around 150 credits, which is impossible to get done in 4 years. You're forced to take summer classes, or if you can't do that, then you're forced to be here for a longer time. So I think something that I think the next president I would like them to look at is looking at the way the programs are structured, so that the students can get to all the knowledge and all the things they need to know to graduate with their degree and be successful in their field. But to be able to do that in the 4-year time of a standard bachelor's degree, whereas some people can go to a 5 years master's program and you get a bachelor's and a master's within the time it takes some people to get a bachelor's degree. So I think something that would be really awesome is to figure out a balance of getting all the necessary information in the classes so that they can be successful, but doing it in a reasonable 4-year span.
Other comments? We're just about at the appointed hour here, but if anyone has a last comment you want to make, happy to hear it. Well, again, I want to thank you all for taking the time to come.
I just wanted to say thank you for coming and actually doing this and listening to what we have to say. So, thank you.
It's our pleasure.
I just have a quick question. When can we expect to see candidates on campus for open forums?
I'm going to refer to Clark, who's staffing this search process.
Yeah, the advertisements are already out nationally in higher education journals online and in specific journals because we're focusing on diversity as well. Applications are coming in. Our next meeting of this group, which is coming up in a couple weeks, is to take all the feedback from all of these hearings and start to develop the criteria we want to use and apply. We hope to have a first round then, looking at all the applications, hopefully about the end of April, and try to get folks here on campus at the beginning of May. It's an aggressive timeline, but as Mr. Hurry said earlier, we want to have these candidates to be able to meet with you all.
So May, you're expecting to have candidates on campus. That's kind of optimistic, cautiously optimistic right now. You have final exams that take place summer sessions will begin, when would you have the opportunity for students to speak to these candidates if it's not going to happen until May? Will it hold off until the fall, or are you going to invite students to come back over the summer?
No, we need a president in place.
Okay.
And those meetings are an important thing driving our calendar. Our tentative schedule now, which we know is tentative, has folks here on campus the week of May 2nd, which is in advance of the finals program. And we know, all the way through the selection, we're not going to make everybody happy, but we're going to try to do this in an inclusive and transparent manner.
Anything else?
Can we be involved in the process?
You will be involved in the process if you want to. There will be an opportunity, probably more than one. There'll be open, I'm sure there'll be open meetings. Some will be, and as I understand it, there'll be some constituency based. Is that right?
Right, we'll have meetings on campus for each of the applicants who come in. And can I ask, could you all get the email from RIC Pres Search?
Yes.
All right, so that did work. That's the one you can respond to if you want to send us further comments as well for this next phase, talking about criteria, and then we'll use that email address to let you all know. We'll give you updates as we go and let you all know when the candidates will be on campus. And we'll use the social media as well.
Anything else?
My social media?
Pardon?
The social media, the RIC Twitter, RIC Facebook.
Anything else? Enjoy the rest of the day. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.